or whatever.
I went to college with somebody who worshipped the sun.
The sun?
And he wasn't.
Find him, get him on the podcast.
How does that
Really?
work?
Yeah,
Han Meditations.
Hello guys, I am Han. This is my wife Kelly.
Hi everyone.
We are Han Meditations and we have a guest today. We have our Nomad friend. He has been around the world multiple times. He's been in different countries. He's seen different cultures. But Islam is one of the cultures and one of the things that he is not an absolute professional on. But we want to show him this and expand his mind view, expand everything that he knows, and then we can get into it and see what he thinks about it. We just got done showing you the 9 shocking facts of the Quran. It opened up your mind. We're going to show you the ring composition and let it open up your mind a little bit more. So let's get into the video and we'll talk about it after. If you see us on our phones, we're actually taking notes because we don't have our notepads today. So let's get into it. I'm excited for you to see this because this one is actually crazy. Let's check it out.
Excuse my ignorance again, viewers.
I mean, we're all new to it. We're all new.
That's the beauty
We're
of
all
it.
new. I'm not a professional at it. You're not a professional. We're still learning.
And
that's why
it provides a lot of value, more than you think, to learn something fresh and new.
I'm warming up to it.
Exactly.
Now. Let's get to
So
the
let's
second video.
see.
Yeah, let's go.
The arrangement of the Quran is one of many reasons why Muslims believe that it could only have come from God. In fact, modern research has discovered a remarkable structure in the Quran known as ring composition. To demonstrate this, let's analyze the second chapter of the Quran known as Al-Baqarah, the cow. This chapter consists of a total of 286 verses. The entire chapter can be divided into 9 groups based on theme. The first group of verses talk about faith and unbelief. This mirrors the theme of the last group of verses. The second group covers God's creation and knowledge. This again mirrors the second to the last group's theme. The third group discusses the law given to the Israelites, which mirrors the giving of law to the Muslims in the 7th group. The fourth group relates to the test of Abraham, a mirror of the test of Muslims in the 6th group. The middle group, the 5th group, is the central theme of the entire chapter, the change in direction of the Muslim prayer. We have made you believers a middle nation, so that you may bear witness to the truth before others. We only made the direction the one you used to face in order to distinguish those who follow the messenger from those who turn on their heels. This turning point was the change in direction of the daily prayers from Jerusalem to Mecca, which represented a big test for the believers. We find the mention of this important turning point in exactly the middle of the chapter, the 143rd verse. Moreover, this verse even contains the word middle. Together these 9 groups form a giant ring composition. As you can see, ring composition is structured as a sort of circle, with the central meaning placed at the center. You can think of it in terms of a mirror, so ring composition is the equivalent of putting a mirror in the middle. What is mentioned in the first half will be reflected in the second half. Things can be taken a step further. If we examine these 9 groups, we find that they each contain sub-ring compositions. So what we have is rings within rings. For example, here is the 8th group with the theme of God's creation and knowledge. We can see that the beginning and the end both have the themes of giving and charity, and the central theme of God's power and knowledge is placed in the middle. Things can be taken further still. This sub-ring contains yet another ring within itself. This is the 255th verse known as Ayat al-Kursi, the verse of the throne. Just like the chapter which contains it, the verse of the throne can be divided into 9 groups based on theme. The first and 9th parts each mention God's personal names. The 2nd and 8th parts both state that God never tires. The 3rd and 7th parts describe that God owns everything in the heavens and the earth. The 4th and 6th parts make it clear that God has total control over us and we are dependent on Him. Notice that the middle of this verse mentions before and after, which could be yet another allusion to the mirroring of ring composition. It's worth highlighting that not only does the verse of the throne contain its own ring composition, but it is also positioned as a sub-ring within 2 larger rings, a concentric ring composition. we can see that this chapter of the Quran is marvelously designed, being precisely and tightly arranged according to the principles of ring composition. This precision in arrangement is in fact astonishing when we consider the timing of the revelation of these verses. To appreciate this, let's consider the analogy of building construction. Imagine you had the task of building a house. Rather than waiting until you receive all of the materials and then drawing up a carefully thought out design plan, you instead decide to proceed without complete knowledge of the constituent parts, constructing it piecemeal, adding to it bit by bit as and when you receive the individual materials. What are the chances that this approach will result in a well-constructed house? Unlike an organized approach where each part is placed in its best possible position according to a design plan, instead you have a situation where it seems each part is placed arbitrarily, depending on the order in which the parts were received. In such circumstances, you would most likely end up with a very poorly designed house, liable to collapse at any time. It is highly unlikely, perhaps even impossible, that this disorganized approach would end up with the same stunningly designed house as an organized approach. Yet this is exactly what we find with the Quran's structure. The builder in our example is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The house that he began to build since its first verses were revealed to him is the Quran. The rooms and bricks in our construction example are its chapters and verses. He can never have a design plan in place for the Quran because the revelation of many of its verses depended on events that were out of his control, such as the social developments and challenges that he faced throughout his prophethood. For example, believers would come up to him and question him on a particular matter, or his enemies would challenge him. The responses in the form of revelation would then descend on him, addressing the specific situation that he was facing. How could Muhammad have devised such an intricate plan when he could not predict the events that would dictate the revelation of verses? Such an arrangement would have to be planned in advance, but this was not possible due to these events being out of his control. What this demonstrates is that the author was someone who could predict the future. Possessing knowledge of the unseen is a quality of God, not human beings. Some critics may point out that books prior to the Quran had this literary style and therefore we cannot use this as an evidence for the Quran's divine origin. However, comparing the Quran to other books is like comparing night and day for many reasons. Firstly, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was not a poet nor did he have any literary reputation. In fact, like many people at the time, he could not read or write. Secondly, most people would assume that the Quran is arranged chronologically, starting with the first revealed verse and ending with the final revealed verse. This is the order in which books are typically written, in a logical sequence starting with the beginning, then the middle, and finally the end. But the way the Quran was composed is unlike any other book. Al-Baqarah, the chapter of the Quran that we have covered, was not revealed starting with verse 1, followed by verse 2, then 3, and so on. Rather, its verses were revealed out of sequence over a span of many years and interspaced with the revelation of verses from other chapters. The Quran's unusual manner of revelation makes implementing ring composition much more difficult than conventional books. Thirdly, conventional books follow an editorial process by undergoing multiple stages of editing, which allows the author to gradually refine the text over time. However, the Quran did not undergo an editorial process. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would place the verses in their positions as soon as they were revealed to him. With each new verse, he would not go off and review what had been previously revealed to see where he can position them in order to maintain a ring structure. Rather, spontaneous revelation was immediately followed by the placement of the verse, its position fixed. When we look at the history of the Quran's compilation, there is not a single instance of a verse being moved around in order to make it fit a ring composition. Fourthly, achieving ring composition in conventional books is much more feasible as the author has complete control over the content, allowing them to plan their structure ahead of time. As we've already seen with the Quran, its content was circumstantial as it was tied to events that were out of the control of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and therefore he could not plan a structure ahead of time. Fifthly, the Quran was first revealed as an oral recitation, not in written format. With written
Quran in the structure of itself, number one, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, could not even read or write. He wasn't known as a poet. He was illiterate. He didn't even know how to read. He didn't know how to write. But he provided the Quran in the text. And the way it was provided, like it said, was orally at first. It wasn't even written. So he had to have had a photographic memory. Whenever someone says it, then he could remember it. Or he was just so good at channeling, he knew exactly what he needed to know when he needed to know it. Right. Like the highest level beings are able to do. And you have to think about it this way. It was written in a mirrored fashion. So the first part was about faith and unbelief. The last chapter, 9, is about faith and unbelief. The second one is about creation and knowledge. 8 is about creation and knowledge. The third one is about laws given to Israelites. 7 is about laws given to Muslims. And the fourth and 6th one is about God's control over us and our need for God, essentially. And the 5th one is about basically before and after.
Well, this is an interesting concept. And how would you sum it up? I know what I feel about it, but before I say anything, what would you say to sum it up for the viewers? How can you sum something like this up?
Like sum what up? What happened?
Because I think there's a lot of info. Maybe it's because my mind, I'm trying to wrap my mind around it and make sure I'm making true sense of what I heard, because it was a lot.
Just think about it this way: he couldn't read or write. He couldn't read or write.
Right, he was illiterate. Right,
but he was able to produce this text.
Right.
Rings within the rings.
That had rings within the rings that matches perfectly.
So was he really the one? Was Muhammad really the one that wrote it though?
Yeah.
Or did he speak and somebody wrote it for him?
Someone wrote it for him.
Yeah, someone wrote it for him, but he spoke it and then they wrote it.
So that's why he said he had to have the photographic memory.
Because he had to recall it.
Right.
And he didn't do it in order either.
Yeah, I think this is reminding me of something, So I don't know if you ever, or anybody in the audience of viewers, have you heard of the watchmaker's theory?
No.
So, and basically in philosophy, when I looked and took a class into that in higher learning, they teach you the watchmaker's theory is that there's basically the watchmaker's theory is showing you that there is a divine consciousness behind this whole universe, that there's a God. It's proving that there's a God because the way that there's trees, the way that there's flowing water, the way that the world is designed, it's not an accident. There's like a 1 in a zillion chance.
Oh yeah.
An infinite number, and so all of a sudden there's an earth that can harvest life, right? So basically that's like saying there's a watch, and then the watch put itself together. There's that same probability of a watch, a perfectly nice, beautiful like clock putting itself together, and then boom, it's working, it's ticking, there's no mistakes, and basically that just shows you that there's a God in his theory, just like how he observed the world. And I don't know, I'm reminded of that for some reason, but that's William Paleys' theory. He was a guy who lived in the 1700s and 1800s, and he was an English guy, but he had his pocket watch and he kept looking. He's like, this is from man. So then God created all this stuff in the earth. So there's another consciousness that created the earth and all this intricate and all the beautiful, people in it and all the intricate animals and everything. It's like there's divinity to this. There's no mistake. And it's like they're saying how this Quran, the book, was put together. There was a higher consciousness, a very intelligent consciousness that put the book together. That's what I'm getting from it. And the way that it's designed, the way that it's like, it's fitting, it's mashing together like gears and a puzzle, but there's no pieces in it that aren't needed. And is that correct? I think I'm getting it, but it's like there's nothing where it's in the Quran where it's like there's no access. It's just fitting. It's fitting in there, like because set of rings, like layers.
Yeah, and as you said, that proves that there is God, because everything, you don't just see a watch appear out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Every animal in the world knows exactly what to do. There's nothing that's falling apart. Everything is already perfect. The atmosphere is perfect. The temperature is perfect. The weather is perfect. This is the only planet in the solar system that even has a total lunar eclipse like we have, because it's the perfect distance from the sun because we are the perfect distance from the moon, and the moon is the perfect distance from the sun to perfectly match it. And then it's just, this is perfection.
This is such an interesting
This was
thing,
detailed
All
and
the
created
creatures.
perfection.
Yeah, I mean, look at like the circle of life. Like every single ecosystem everywhere, there's the perfect amount of like predators and prey. You know, I remember learning about that as a kid. Like if one animal was gone out of the ecosystem, it would all fall apart. Like if the bees were gone, it would lead to this, and that, and then we would all die. You know what I mean?
Divine
Like,
intelligent creator, that meaning God. I'll never forget in my philosophy class, my professor asked the class, like he said, raise your hand. How many people understand and believe the watchmaker's theory that there was an intelligent person, not just behind a watch, but the universe and God? Like, was it God or was there an intelligent being behind it? So like there was like maybe 90% of the class that raised their hand, and there was like 10%. And I'll never forget, I was looking at a guy who was an atheist. So this man, he didn't raise his hand. He said, no, I don't think so. I think it was by chance. So then the professor said, so you think there was a 1 in a zillion, whatever biggest number you could think of, just chance of this universe coming together perfectly so that you could be alive right now? And he just was like,
I mean, dude, people will go to any length. I mean,
we watched a video like that.
Yeah, and maybe we'll show you a little bit more, because we watched. There's this guy. Everyone wants us to be on his channel. I want to reach out to him. His name is the Muslim Lantern. Yeah. He's a Muslim man. He debates people, and he was talking to an atheist, and the atheist is basically saying, "Well, I don't believe in God because I've never seen God."
And they thought the Big Bang was an accident.
Yeah, so, see, there's a lot of different things that would have to be debated. Like, it's you know, you're gonna refute and deny a God. It's like you have to have a really strong reason too.
Yeah.
Like,
so
to
basically,
divine creator for all of this. I feel like
basically what I was saying was, the person said, I don't believe in anything I can't see, essentially. And then he said, well, do you have a brain? And they're like, yeah. He said, have you seen your brain? And then they're like, he
just believes that, he believes that he has a brain.
And it's like, well, I can get scans. And he's like, well, have you seen your brain? Because that argument doesn't even make sense. What do you mean you don't believe in things that you can't see?
He doesn't believe in air because he what is he breathing? You don't
exactly,
see air.
Exactly.
You know,
so people,
oxygen, right?
Yeah. So people just like every time you look around you, you see God in everything. You just don't know what you're looking at.
Interesting.
Most people just have no idea what they're looking at.
It's like, you know, people have a right to believe what they want, but it's really more so I just want to sometimes just pick the brain of a atheist. Not so much as a non-believer of Islam or Christianity, but what's more interesting is the atheist, because there's more so a fight to deny a God. There's like, no, there is no God. There's no creator. Not just, hey, I'm not going to go ahead and be this religion. I'm just going to deny in totality there's a creator for any other religions at all.
Well, a lot of atheists hate God. You know what I mean?
But there's something, I think it stems from something. Maybe
so they hate God. So how could you hate someone that doesn't exist?
And I can't speak
How could you hate someone or something that doesn't exist?
So then it's a contradiction.
Yeah. So how could you hate God if God doesn't exist? It doesn't make sense. So a lot of these atheists, they have a vitriol, a hate for God.
Hate them, or they just don't believe in a God?
No, you know, a lot of atheists, they hate it.
But I think if they hate him, I think it stems in maybe they were forced.
Not all of them, of course.
When they were kids, maybe they were, if they didn't do something, they would really get in trouble, where it's like psychological, where they were made to hate something, or they had some type of trauma with it. I don't know. I can't speak for all atheists, but it's like, I think it stems from something. Something turned them off.
It could be they grew up very religiously, and then it just, you know, they just wanted to reject it all. Who knows?
They felt, they could have felt they didn't belong with anything. I don't know. How do we try to incorporate is atheism a religion? It's a religion. So is it a religion?
Essentially.
That's a contradiction too. So it's religion about not having a religion.
Because the real truth is you're going to be worshiping something.
Whether
it's God or not. Yeah. You're going to be worshiping something. Yeah. Whether you worship celebrities, whether you worship the culture you live in, whether you worship, race or whatever.
I went to college with somebody who worshipped the sun.
The sun?
And he wasn't.
Find him. Get him on the podcast.
How does that work?
Yeah, I think, I guess I won't mention his name. Who knows if can track him, whatever. But he was right next to me. We were right there, classmates. He was born here, like in America, like wasn't foreign or anything, Caucasian. But he said, you know, like we were talking about what our religions were. He just said, you know, I actually worship the sun. He had a sun around his neck. He said, you gotta understand why and, you know, the power of the sun and what it does in our lives. Without the sun, we won't have anything. Like,
yeah, but imagine how does he think the sun got there?
We didn't get that far.
Like, who created the sun then?
But I had never,
you know what I mean?
I never talked to somebody who thoroughly believed in the sun and actually.
And there's zillions of suns.
That's true.
So you worship them all? You a pagan? So
we got
just confusing.
There was another guy. There's a guy who was Christian from Nigeria. We had a debate about it for a while. I wish I listened to it the whole time, but he kept talking about the significance of the sun. We didn't talk about who created it. He just kept saying, without the sun, he said the sun is everything, and that was why he worshipped it. He said it's for, you know, it brings us life, it gives us energy.
Yeah, but the sun.
If without the sun, you don't have the moon.
Yeah, but the thing is, how could you even say the word "the sun is everything" if the sun has a beginning and an ending?
It's like back to what the Egyptians.
The sun is still ruled by the rules of space time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you have someone like God is not ruled by space or time. So God is outside of the realm of space and time. That is the only way that you can create a universe if you're not in the realm of space and time, if you're outside of it completely.
It was also maybe because, you know how when the Egyptians worshiped the sun, they didn't just worship the sun alone. And that's like, I don't know, maybe I could have asked him further, but from what I know, he just worshiped the sun. And
you still talk to him?
No, I could find him maybe on Facebook, but that'd be a really good conversation, and maybe he would change. Maybe I don't know if he changed his beliefs now.
That's
but have you ever?
interesting.
Yeah, no, I've never heard of that, and I thought because looking at him, you'll say, oh, maybe he's Catholic or something. But no, you look down at the necklace of the sun. He said that's who I worship confidently.
I mean, you can say that about a lot of things. You can like, well, without our body, I wouldn't be here. So I worship my body. You know what I mean? Like, you could. There's so many things, but like at the end of the day, it's all created by God.
That is what they did believe in Kemet in Egypt. I know they were worshiping somebody.
The lower tiers of Egypt, probably.
Yeah. And it was, I think, in a different.
They had the Dark Ages in Egypt. At a certain period of time,
it's a different fashion how they did it, though.
But yeah, this is a really interesting conversation that we've been having. This is why we have him on the podcast, because he gives a different perspective on life. So we're so grateful to have him. And I just have to say, guys, every video I have to thank everyone that's been donating. Thank you guys so much. You guys are the backbone of the channel. You have no idea how much you're helping us and how much you're motivating us. It makes us want to keep doing more videos, bringing more interesting ideas. We have so many ideas and so many things that we're going to bring to the table. We're going to start live streaming. We're going to start reading the Quran live. We're going to start bringing more people on to talk about different religions and perspectives in God. And we have so many cool, awesome things planned for you. So thank you guys so much for being here and watching the video. You liking and subscribing is all you need to do. Sharing the video. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you
in the next video.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.